Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
I will share my screen. There we go. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayit Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtuki. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, one should first offer one's respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, Narayan, unto Nar Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto the goddess of learning, Mother Saraswati, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart becomes almost completely destroyed, and devotional service becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Good morning, devotees. We're continuing our study of the second canto, 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, text number 49. We will chant a call and response here in the temple room. And then when we're done chanting in the temple room, those that are online that would like to chant, I'll open that up for you. Thank you. And Mother Vinjavali, if you could just place yourself on mute. There's some feedback coming through on this end. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Yes. Hare Krishna. Okay, let's chant here. Sashreyasam avibidur bhagavan yatosha. Sashreyasam avibibur bhagavan yatosha. Bhava swabhava vihitasya sata prasidhi. Bhava swabhava vihitasya sata prasidhi. Dehe swadu datu vigame nuvishiryamane. Dehe swadatu vigame nanushiryamane. Vyomeva yat tatra purusho navishiryateja. Vyameva tatra purusho navishiryateja. Sashreyasam api vibhur bhagavan yatosha. Sam api vibhur bhagavan yatosha. Bhava swabhava vihitasya sata prasidhi. Bhava swabhava vihitasya sata prasidhi. Dehe swadatu vigame nuvishkiryamane. Dehe swadatu vigame nuvishkiryamane. Vyomeva Tatra Purusho Navishiryateja. Sashreyasam avipibur bhagavan yatosha. Bhava swabhava vihitasya sata prasiddhi. Dehe swadatu vigame nuvishiryamane. Yo me vatatra purusho navishiryateja. In the temple room, would anybody like to chant? Hare Krishna. Sashreyasam avibibur bhagavan yatosya. Bhava swabhava vihitasya sata prasiddhi. Dehe swadatu vigame nanuvishiryamane. Yo me vatatra purusho navishiryateja. Sashreyasam api vibhur bhagavan yatosya. Bhava swabhava vihitasya sata prasiddhi. Dehe swabhatu vigame nanushiriyamane. Yo me vatatra purusho navishiryateja. Sashreyasam avibhur bhagavan yatosha. Bhava swabhava vihitasya sata prasiddhi. Dehe swadatu vigame nanushiriyamane. Yo me vatatra purusho navishiryateja. Very nice. Okay. Sashreyasam api vibhur bhagavan yatosya. Bhava swabhava vihitasya sata prasiddhi. Dehe swadatu vigame nanushiriyamane. Yo me vatata purusho navishiryateja. Thank you. We got 100% participation from the devotees in the temple. That was great. Okay, online, would you like to go ahead? You just chant it straight through. We won't do the call and response like we did in the temple. You can just chant it straight through.
Okay, Prabhu. सश्रेयशामपि विभुर्भगवान् यतोऽस्य भावस्वभावविहितस्य सतः प्रसिद्धि देहे स्वधातु विगमेनु विशीर्यमाने योमेव तत्र पुरुषो न विशीर्यतेजा।
सश्रेयसम् अपि विभुर्भगवान् यतोऽस्य भावा स्वभावविहितस्य सता प्रसिद्धिः देहे सुदेषु विगमे नु विशिष्यमाने व्योमेव तत्र पुरुषो न विशिष्यते च। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण। साश्रेयसामपि विपुर्भगवान् यतो हसेया भावा स्वभावविहितस्य सतः प्रसिद्धिः देहे स्वधातु विगमे अनुविशीर्यमाणे व्योमेव तत्र पुरुषो न विशीर्यते अजः। हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Tashreya samapti bhagavan yatosha bhava svabhava viti vihitasya sattaha prasiddhi dehe swadattu vigame nuvishirayamane yomeva tattva purusho navishiryaja.
Jai. Anyone else? What's that? That was David. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the synonyms. Saha, he. Shreyasam, all auspiciousness. Api, also. Vibhu, the master. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Yata, because. Asya, of the living entity. Bhava, natural modes. Swabhava, own constitution. Vihitasya, performances. Sata, all good work. Prasiddhi, ultimate success. Dehe, of the body. Swadhatu, forming elements. Vigame, being vanquished. Anu, after. Vishiryamane, having given up. Vyoma, sky. Eva, like. Tatra, thereupon. Purusha, the living entity. Na, never. Vishiryate, becomes vanquished. Aja, due to being unborn. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The personality of Godhead is the supreme master of everything auspicious, because the results of whatever actions are performed by the living being in either the material or spiritual existence are awarded by the Lord. As such, He is the ultimate benefactor. Every individual living entity is unborn, and therefore, even after the annihilation of the material elementary body, the living entity exists exactly like the air within the body. Purport. There's a lot that's covered in this purport, so pay attention. The living entity is unborn and eternal. And as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 2:30, the living entity is not exhausted even though the material elementary body is vanquished. As long as the living entity is in material existence, actions performed by him are rewarded in the next life, or even the present life. Similarly, in the spiritual life, also actions are rewarded by the Lord by the 5 kinds of liberation. Even the impersonalists cannot achieve the desired merging into the existence of the Supreme without being favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4:11 that the Lord awards similar results as one desires in one's present life. The living entities are given freedom to make their choice, and the Lord awards them accordingly. It is the duty of everyone, therefore, to worship devoutly only the personality of Godhead to achieve his desired goal. The impersonalists, instead of speculating or meditating, can directly execute the routine devotional service of the Lord and thus easily obtain the desired goal. The devotees, however, are naturally inclined to become associates of the Lord and not merge in the spiritual existence, as conceived by the impersonalists. The devotees, therefore, following their constitutional instincts, achieve the desired goal of becoming servitors, friends, fathers, mothers, or conjugal lovers of the Lord. The devotional service of the Lord involves 9 transcendental processes, such as hearing and chanting, and by performing such easy and natural devotional services, the devotees achieve the highest perfectional results, far, far superior to merging into the existence of Brahman. The devotees are therefore never advised to indulge in speculating upon the nature of the Supreme or artificially meditating on the void. One should not, however, mistakenly think that after the annihilation of this present body, there is no body by which one can associate with the Lord face to face. The living entity is unborn. It is not that he is manifest with the creation of the material body. On the other hand, it is true that the material body develops only by the desire of the living entity. The evolution of the material body is due to the desires of the living being. According to the desires of the living being, the material body develops. So from the spirit soul, the material body comes into existence, generated from the living force. Since the living being is eternal, he exists just like air within the body. Air is within and without the body. Therefore, when the external covering, the material body, is vanquished, the living spark, like the air within the body, continues to exist. And by the direction of the Lord, because he is the ultimate benefactor, the living entity is at once awarded the necessary spiritual body befitting his association with the Lord in the manner of sarupya, equal bodily feature, salokya, equal facility to live on the same planet with the Lord, sharsti, equal possession of opulence like the Lord, and samipya, equal association with the Lord. The Lord is so kind that even if a devotee of the Lord cannot fulfill the complete course of devotional service, unalloyed and uncontaminated by material association, he is given another chance in his next life by being awarded a birth in the family of a devotee or a rich man, so that without being engaged in the struggle for material existence, the devotee can finish the remaining purification of his existence, and thus, immediately after relinquishing the present body, go back home, back to Godhead. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, and specifically the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. This is spoken about. In connection, detailed information is available in the Bhagavad Sandarbha of Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada. Once achieving the spiritual existence, the devotee is eternally situated there, as already discussed in the previous verse. Om Agyanatimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Swapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'll read the verse once again. The personality of Godhead is the supreme master of everything auspicious, because the results of whatever actions are performed by the living being in either the material or spiritual existence are awarded by the Lord. As such, he is the ultimate benefactor. The individual living entity is unborn, and therefore, even after the annihilation of the material elementary body, the living entity exists exactly like air within the body. So there's a lot of topics that are covered here. And first one is this term I want to mention. There's a term benefactor. Benefactor means one that gives benefits. And then beneficiary is the one that receives the benefits. So usually we think in terms of like the government is the benefactor or the bank is the benefactor. They give a loan and you're the beneficiary of that loan if you go and get it. It's being stated here that whether we are in material consciousness or spiritual consciousness, Krishna is the benefactor of the results, be they material or spiritual. In other words, nothing exists outside the realm of Krishna. Individuality exists. We are all individuals and we all have free will, which is stated in the commentary here. But even our free will and our individuality cannot escape the realm of Krishna. It is a matter of whether we reside in the material world or in the spiritual world. But both are created and controlled by Krishna. And the results that we enjoy as a result of our activities, they are bestowed upon us by Krishna. So, in one sense, there's no escaping Krishna. We can only forget about him. We can only pretend that he doesn't exist. In fact, there's a verse in the 10th chapter, text 8. It'll actually be the topic of our Sunday feast talk tomorrow. Aham sarvasya prabhavo. It states that You know, Krishna says, I am the source of the spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. And those who understand this perfectly engage in my devotional service and worship. Thank you. Very nice. Very nice. Thank you, Bhakti Tom. This is a very famous verse. So when one has this understanding that there is nothing but Krishna, you know that you're under the control of Krishna. What else is there left to do? We can either resist and stay in illusion, or we can try to understand who this personality is. And when one understands who this personality is, the result is that one surrenders with devotion, with all their heart. We actually have no real other choice. And that is bewildering and unknown to many. And we'll go over that a little bit today. A comparison is given in this life. And analogies you can only take an analogy so far. At a certain point, it reaches some level of discontinuity. But take this analogy, for instance. If a person wants to exhibit their free will in this world, they can do so only to a certain limit. So in this world, in the land that we live in the city of Philadelphia, there are rules we have to live by, and we can live free if we follow the rules. Right? You're not going to get arrested if you abide by the rules, generally speaking. I mean, there are situations where things unfortunately happen, but generally speaking, if you live by the rules, you won't get arrested and put into jail. But so you have to live by under some level of restriction. You can't say, I'm just free to do whatever I want to do. You're free, but within the parameters of the rules of the land. Now, if a person says, I just want to be free and I'm not going to live by any rules. Rules don't exist. I'm just going to exhibit my free will no matter what. And I'm going to walk into the store and I'm going to take whatever I want and I'm going to treat people however I want. And I'm just going to live outside these boundaries of the rules. Can that ever exist? No, that's why they have the law. And you go in, you try to take a candy bar from the store and just say, I'm just going to take it because this is the way I want to live. The cops will be there and you'll get arrested and you'll be taken there. It's kind of like the material world and the spiritual world. Krishna says, okay, you don't want to live within the parameters of this world. I'll create another world for you. And that is the material world. They say it's about 1/4 of the total cosmic creation. Just like in a city, they have a jail on the outskirts for people that want to do something different. And you go to the jail and you're able to exhibit that difference. But are they ever really happy there? No. So within the material world, the benefits that Krishna are given, the results that Krishna is given, it comes in the form of this word karma. And karma is very complicated. In fact, there's a verse in the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita here. I'll share it, 14:17. Out of all the topics that Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita, he's very clear about a lot of them. And in fact, he's, devotion, knowledge, the path of yoga. But when he comes to the topic of karma, he says the intricacies of action, which the definition of karma is action, is very hard to understand. Therefore, one should properly know what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. Karma takes on multiple definitions. And Krishna says it's very difficult to understand karma, like to trace out your karma. And people are trying to figure this out. People try to understand, why are things the way they are? Why are people so complicated? You know, why are people born into, some people are born into a poor family, some people are born into a rich family, some people are born with a certain ethnicity, some people are born with great abilities, some people are born with handicaps. You know, so why do bad things happen to good people? People are really trying to, as you know, understand this and figure it out. Krishna says it's very difficult to understand. If in the 15th chapter, we'll get to that. Krishna will again explain a little bit further about this. But action is generally known as karma. Specifically, karma that is advised in scriptures about how one should act in this world so that one can elevate oneself and eventually get out of this world. But so when you say karma, karma is usually referred to shastrically as proper action or action according to the will or the direction of God. And then there is vikarma, which means forbidden action or action that is, you know, not recommended. Jai Shishi Gaurnitai ki jai. Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai. Shishi Radhashard Bihari ki jai. Both karma and vikarma produce results. And in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, this is 8.3, Krishna defines karma in another way. He takes it further. He says, action. Arjuna asks, what is karma? And he says, action pertaining to the development of material bodies of living entities is called karma, or furtive activities. Action pertaining to the development of material bodies of the living entities is called karma. So there's karma and vikarma, recommended action and then forbidden action. And then there's another category called akarma. And means activity without reaction. The reactions that come from actions actually propel us into another body. And we get resultant actions or reactions from our actions. You do good for somebody, that good will come back to you. You harm somebody, that harm will come back to you. You mix harm with good, you'll get a mixture of them both. And it propels in this life, and then it propels you into the next life. And how does that happen? And go in, this is in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. I know I'm throwing a lot of references here, but it's good to understand where this kind of comes from, this idea of karma. So text number 9 of the 15th chapter. The living entity, thus taking another gross body. Let me go text 8. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as air carries aromas. Thus, he takes on one kind of body and quits it and takes to take another. This verse used the word, the material elementary body. The material body consists of the flesh and bones that we have, that we see, that we touch, that we see, you know, that we experience, the senses. But that body dies. But there's another material body called the subtle body. And that consists of your mind, your intelligence, and your false ego. That actually stays on and goes to your next body. That doesn't die. So when it talks about the living entity carries different conceptions from one life of one body to another. It says just like air carries aromas. When you walk into the house and you smell, somebody's cooking, you can't see it. It's just something that's very subtle. Can you see the aroma? No, but you know it's there. So our material conceptions of life and our reactions, they get carried with us from one body to another body, but we can't really see that this is happening. So then text 9, the living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, sense of touch, which are grouped around by the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So the idea is this, that we get placed into a body based upon our desires. That body may be a human body, it may be an animal body, it may be a plant body, it may be a body of a demigod. And we can go from one species of life to another species of life. This can happen based upon our desire. There's no guarantee that when we reincarnate, we'll reincarnate back into the human form of life. One may go into an animal life. The example of even a person who can be a very exalted devotee. The example is Bart Maharaj, who went out into the forest to meditate at the end of his life. And while he was there, he fell in love with an adorable deer. And he forgot about why he went out to the forest, was to get away from his attachments. And he just got consumed by the welfare of this deer. And he died. And all he was thinking about was the deer. And therefore he got the body of a deer in his next life. Because he was exalted, because he had knowledge, he just didn't take it to that final step. He remembered actually his previous life when he was a deer. But we may not always have that situation. He was the exception. We'll also find in this commentary, in the purport by Srila Prabhupada, that we may not achieve perfection in this life. That really, a lot of that is not even up to us. It's really on the mercy. A lot of it is up to us in the sense that we have to give our best. We have to try our best. We have to do everything within our power to want to come to Krishna. And Krishna and Guru supply the rest to lift us up. So in that way, it's not up to us. But the path of Krishna consciousness, if one is steady on the path of Krishna consciousness, Krishna says there's no loss nor diminution on this path. And even a little bit of advancement can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Most dangerous type of fear is being in a condition where one will forget about Krishna and fall back into this pattern of repeated birth and death, when the opportunity to come out of it is available. So we have karma and vikarma, which produce reactions. But then there is akarma. Akarma means there is no reaction. That is devotional service. When one performs service to Krishna without motivation, there's no reaction generated from that. Actually, Krishna says there is a reaction, but it's not a reaction that will lead to future material bodies. This reaction will actually elevate one into the spiritual world. And Krishna is the benefactor of those results as well. And there are 5 different types or general categories of those results. The first is sayuja, and that's called impersonal liberation. Impersonal liberation means that one understands that they are Brahman, or spirit soul, and they're separate from this material energy. And they just want to be in existence, eternal existence. But they lose their individual identity, theoretically. So we hear this concept, we use this very much impersonalists. What is the goal of the impersonalist? To identify that they are Brahman, but nothing more. And that I am Brahman, you are Brahman. Ultimately, there's nothing but Brahman. And therefore, the pinnacle or the goal is just to recognize and be aware that I am Brahman and live in this consciousness that I am spirit. We are all spirit, and we just kind of merge into this existence. We are on the same page with them up to a certain degree. Yes, it's true. The Vaishnavas are the personalists that are devoted to the personality of Godhead Krishna. We also agree that we are Brahman. We are spirit. We are separate from matter. But we take it further. We don't stop at the stage of Brahman. What is the nature of that Brahman? Devotional service. It's not just knowledge. That knowledge brings about an awareness and a consciousness of devotion. And devotion is an action term. In fact, Srila Prabhupada would say devotional service. He would use that term for bhakti. It is not just an idea or knowledge. It's actually something that will impel you into action of love. Just like if you know somebody and you develop love for somebody, you then begin to serve that person. It's not just you love them and you just kind of exist. No, your existence is around their well-being and their happiness, and you want to do things to try to please them.
It's truly love in action.
Love in action, bhakti.
It's not just, everyone always talks about love in action. That's like a cliche almost. That's what devotional service is. It's love in action.
What is the depth of a person's love if it's not expressed through actions?
And that's, James Baldwin had a quote that I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. Words are paltry with action.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. For those online, Dr. Tom was just sharing the difference between words and actions, and how actions really reflect how we truly feel in relationship, specifically in relationship to our devotional lives. So going back to this chapter 15, text 10, carrying on, it says, the foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But those whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all of this. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization, they can see all of this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed, and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try. So this is going back to the idea that people are trying to understand how this world works. And they develop their speculations, they perform experiments, sociology, psychology, the nature of human behavior, the nature of the human mind, science, trying to understand, the beginning of man and how man came about and why different things happen in different parts of the world, how they all relate to the complexity of life, but they're baffled. And here Krishna, granted, it's only in 2 verses here, he's explaining that if one can understand how action works, reaction works, and how one can actually become free from that, you can actually have these eyes of transcendence, and you won't be baffled in this world. I think I jumped over the other 4 elements of transcendental benefits that Krishna gives. So I don't know if anybody picked it up from the purport. So there's Sayuja, which is merging into Krishna's Brahma Jyoti or Brahman effulgence. Devotees aren't interested in that because there's no activity there. There's no individuality there. But there's another one called Sarupya, which means one gets the same bodily features as God. So this is actually in Vaikuntha Lokas. You can actually get 4 arms, just like Krishna, and the same bodily complexion as Krishna. And this is described. There is Swaloka, which one actually goes to the same planet as Krishna and lives on the same planet as Krishna. So same, if you're getting the same body, you're also living on the same planet, but there are some people that live on the same planet that don't get the same body. Sharsti, which means you get the same opulence as Krishna. You experience the same opulent features. And then there is Samipya. That is one actually gets the association or becomes an intimate associate of Krishna. These liberations are not emphasized very much in the path of bhakti or the school of bhakti. Because even liberation is somewhat of a selfish desire. For a devotee, their goal is focused on Krishna's pleasure. They're not so much thinking about me becoming free. They want to see Krishna pleased. So, but the secret is, in bhakti, liberation is already taken care of. Rupa Goswami says that it's a minor byproduct of bhakti, where maybe for the yogis, for the those that study the Vedas, the Vedantists, or even maybe those of different sampradayas that are really focused on just trying to get free from the clutches of the material energy and stop the suffering that we're all going through. Their goal is to really just attain the state of liberation. But bhakti is actually the ultimate goal of that liberation. So when one performs bhakti, it's actually all these aspects of liberation, freedom from all your problems, it's already included. Bhakti is actually much more rare than getting liberation. So one who actually has the opportunity to see this, they can actually see things in a much more peaceful way. Karma is oftentimes looked at in terms of reaction only, not in terms of action. But we have to put them together as action and reaction. Karma explains a lot, especially when one is going through suffering. But to explain it to somebody who's going through suffering, that this is your karma, meaning that you're in a bad situation in life, or you're suffering, and it's a result of something you did in your past life, that can be very troublesome to hear. In fact, what people really need is to be comforted, because there's really nothing they can do about what they did before that brought them here. Really, they need to be comforted to understand that, to get at least some temporary relief from the suffering that they have. And when their mind comes back to a state of comfort, then they can be opened up to trying to understand how the system actually works in the material world. Too oftentimes, the idea of karma can be used almost as a weapon, and it actually makes people feel even worse. But if applied at the appropriate time, when a person is of balanced mind, it can explain a lot. And then when difficult times come later on, a person then can be armed with the understanding of knowledge to not be distraught, or to be able to cope, realize, and process how the activities of this material world actually come about. And I believe if more people understood this, you would have less revenge in the world. You would have a lot less mental suffering. There would be an aspect of acceptance, of an understanding, feeling of responsibility for one's actions. And we'd also understand that performing harm to other people will only bring harm back to myself later on. It will also elevate one's consciousness to understand that if these things are constantly happening over and over again, is there a way to get out of this cycle? And to that question, the answer is yes. And then we can take it further of how does one perform this akarma, or devotional service. Let me stop here and see if there's any questions or comments from those in the temple. We'll start here first, and then we'll go to those that are online. Voidism? So void, that's usually a Buddhist term, right? Because the void. In the Mayavad philosophy, the impersonalist philosophy, their conception only goes up to this idea that there is something that exists that is all spirit, but that spirit doesn't have any type of qualities. There's no duality that's there. So anytime you have qualities or variety, there's some level of duality. So therefore, there has to be a place where there's no qualities, no variety. There's no individuality, because that is duality. And wherever there's duality, there is imperfection. So their concept stops at that level. So when you look at the Upanishads, I haven't read through them extensively, but in reading through Srila Prabhupada's books, and as well as listening to talks on it, the ideas that are presented in the Upanishads, you really need really strong intelligence to understand. That's why actually Lord Chaitanya said, when he was asked by the Mayavad sannyasis, how come you aren't studying Vedanta with us? He says, my spiritual master considered me to be a fool and not able to understand the purports of the Upanishads, the meaning of the Upanishads. In fact, he instructed me just to chant Hare Krishna and realize Krishna that way. Because it's very difficult to understand. So the idea is that they read the Upanishads, they speak about them, and they discuss possible meanings of them, and this is the idea of mental speculation. But the ultimate, or the conclusion is that we are all spirit, and there's this Brahman that exists that we're all part of. So Sankaracharya, a great teacher, he was the teacher of this philosophy. Even though at the end of his life he also instructed everybody, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Maru Mate. Don't spend your time just with all this word jugglery of Sanskrit trying to understand. Just worship Govinda. That was his conclusion. But he brought forth this impersonalistic philosophy. But it's an age-long debate. He wasn't the first one. I mean, it went on well before that. That's where this impersonalist comes from. So in one sense, it's true that material variety, there's duality in it. But in order to get something has to exist before it. So in order for there to be variety here in this world, it has to come from something that already exists that has variety. In other words, you can't get something from nothing. You can't get variety from something that doesn't have variety. So yes, variety exists in this world, but actually it comes from the spiritual world, which there is variety. There's individuality. The difference is the variety in this world and the variety in that world are of two different natures. The variety in this world is limited. The variety in the spiritual world is unlimited. The relationships in the spiritual world are unbroken, where the relationships in this world are broken. They're under the control of time. They will eventually end, as will our bodies, as will our minds. They eventually come to an end, where the variety there is unlimited. It's just the nature of this world. So that's the part where we continue, where they stop at Brahman. Any questions, thoughts on karma?
So you're talking about free will,
Yeah.
and how it's limited, and we're only free insofar as we abide by the rules and laws of the material world, or our cities, or society, right?
Yeah.
But like with free will, like we're like kind of simultaneously, we're like in between the material world and the spiritual world at all times. We can go in either direction. And we're disregarding all the rules and laws of the spiritual world. And so we're not really free. We're like in the prison of the material energy.
Right.
So we're not really free. And my thing is, do we really have free will? Because we're born into this body with its concomitant features, the senses, the intelligence, the false ego, and the past desires, and the karma. And we're born into ignorance, we're not born with knowledge. And so we're just guided mainly by our senses, and our faulty intelligence, and our overburdened mind. So the free will just kind of gets like kind of carried along in that process, you know. And so there's no real impetus for freedom because we think, oh, we're just enjoying ourselves, we're seeking out pleasure wherever we feel, and you know that's our idea of freedom. And we're allowed to do that when we're free. But it's really only until you come in contact with knowledge, you know, that you start to see things in a different way. You start to see all these like unconscious impulses as really binding, and entangling, and complicated, and undermining. Like that real impetus, that real desire for real freedom. I actually like to say, instead of free will, we should think of it as the will to be free. And
That's nice.
that comes about with knowledge. And in ignorance, it's free will. In knowledge, it's the will to be free.
I like that. Thank you. Yeah. Bhakti Tam, for those online, Bhakti Tam was just very nicely explaining how we say we have free will, but those freedoms are really not there because we're under the control of our material senses, the modes of material nature, and this material, and just the nature of this material world. And so in our ignorance, we think that we have this freedom, but really we're acting, there's so many things that are controlling us. For instance, like in many ways, we're slaves to our senses. Our senses want certain things, so we give into it, and now we're serving them. But when one comes to an understanding of how this whole system is working, one gains the will to gain true freedom, or the will to be free. I like that. I like that use of the words. Only in our spiritual consciousness, our Krishna consciousness, can we exhibit the sense of true freedom. In this way, we're bound. You know?
Yeah, it's like spiritually we're not around stealing candy bars.
Right. Like a person who takes intoxications, you know, they go out, have a good time, they go to the bar, they go to a party, and they drink, alcohol, and they're exhibiting, you could say, I'm exhibiting my free will to do whatever I want to. It's, freedom of choice, right? But are you really free? You're making a decision, so you have the opportunity to make a decision for yourself, but you're under the influence now of some chemicals that are now altering your state of mind. So are you really free?
There's a reaction.
Yeah.
And that reaction is putting you right in the mode of ignorance.
Yeah. That's right.
To leave this body in the mode of ignorance that's the greatest enemy. There's nothing worse than that.
Yeah. It's true. When you leave your body in the mode of ignorance, you go down to Shishi Gornitai Ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki Jai, Shishi Radhashar Bihari Ki Jai. Yeah, you go down to different species of life. It can be different ones. Yeah. In Krishna Awards, there's a verse in this purport 410. I didn't touch on it, but it was in the purport where it says, Yaya tam mam prapadyante tam stataiva bijam yaham. Basically, as one surrenders unto me, I reward them accordingly. So whether it's in the material platform or the spiritual platform, Krishna is giving these rewards. And if one wants to live in a certain consciousness, Krishna gives us a body to be in that consciousness. Like we hear that the human body really not meant for eating meat. the way our intestines are designed, the way our teeth are designed, the way everything like that is designed. There are bodies that are out there much more designed by nature, by Krishna, for eating of meat. Their intestines are a lot smaller. They can push that through really quickly. Their teeth are different. Their claws are different. It's just the way they handle things. So if a person's really into doing that, they can get a body that's more accustomed to that. There's pictures in the Bhagavad Gita that show this. It's kind of interesting because it reflects upon this idea that your activities in this life will lead to your next life. Here's kind of a grotesque one, but it's like the guy killing an animal with an axe, and basically he has the face of that animal, and the animal has the face of the human next life. So that's the cycle of action and reaction. You're gonna have to suffer the same way you've made somebody else suffer. You can imagine what that does. If a person's in knowledge of that, they would think twice before they acted. This is another one. Person likes to sleep all the time. They get a body of a bear, they can hibernate. And they can, models and people that like to just have people observe their bodies constantly. You can get a body of a tree and people can just, you can stand there naked and people can just look at you all the time. So that's the idea.
That you're gonna suffer in the next life the way you made suffer in the previous life. And it's funny, like you can see it even in this life. People who suffer in this life want to visit that suffering on others.
Yeah.
Those who hurt want to hurt others.
Yes.
You see it all the time.
Yeah.
So like that reaction is there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why it says the intricacies of this is so difficult to understand, because it spans not just
This life.
or one particular action, because we're all a mixed bag, right? Very rarely do you find somebody that's just doing all V karma. It's like a mixture of mostly good, but then they got to find something illegal goes on, or something immoral goes on, or just something ruthless goes on, and you think like, okay, now all of a sudden that all gets mixed up together, and then we don't know how it's administered. But Krishna does say, as one is doing this, I reward them accordingly. So he's giving karma accordingly, and he understands our intentions, he understands our heart. So it's all of that is all factored in. We can't understand it, but we can understand that there is a way to get out. And that's Prabhupada also gave the example of like when there's a fire going on in the building, you just want to get out of the building. You don't want to debate, how to start, was it this person's fault? You figure all that stuff out later. The urgency is just to get out of the building.
Actually, bring the announcement.
Samsara Dharvana Lalita Loka. That's that verse. It's a forest fire from material existence. Let me just see if there's anybody online, and then we can. It's very nice. Hare Krishna. Anybody online would like to share anything? Thank you all for listening attentively. We had a nice conversation here in the temple room. Later on today, we have a 12-hour kirtan from 12 o'clock to 8 o'clock. We invite you all to come and join. And also, we're going to be doing some prasadam distribution. So if you want to come to the temple, we're going to start soon, making up baskets to distribute to our neighbors. So I hope you can join us. If not, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow at our Sunday program. Have a wonderful Krishna conscious day. Hare Krishna. Jai.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Nice.
Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.